Good evening. Oh, it's not. Now it's good evening. Okay. Sounds better. I hope that we could understand, or we can understand more and more about the human being, and I want to make a short repetition on what we are looking right now. We have seen that we are a combination of a spirit and a body, and there needs a place for them to meet. There is a place where the spirit has to put its input, and that is the heart of man. That's the central place. If in that place everything is right, everything is going to come out right. But if in that place everything is wrong, everything will come out wrong. So, in this heart, we have different parts. And I have not done this, but we have to have an imagination how it works. So let's say, what is the last layer? Where is the bottom of decision making? And I would say the bottom of decision making is the question that the spirit has, or the idea that he has about himself. Who am I? Out of the who am I comes out the motivation. That means, am I following the right motivation or the wrong motivation? Motivation. The motivation brings in the action, and we can say here is the truth and here is the lie, the evil eye, which has in it some of the who am I situation. And above then, after we have the motivation, the action comes when we have the gain and loss decision. Yes and no. But in a moment we say yes, the body gets involved. Before, it's just a spiritual matter of thinking. So if we clear this, we know what is the right way to act. Then we know what is a gain and loss. And then the yes and the no is included. So the main problem in humanity is what was changed in him when Adam and Eve sinned. What question was deteriorated? And the question was deteriorated, who am I? Who was Adam before he sinned? Who did he think he is? He's a creature, yes? He knew that he was created. He didn't think that he's not a creature. But what did he think about himself after he sinned? And this is where everything then in our life starts. I want to prove to you that this not knowing who you are brings you into all the troubles. Now, yes, he could stay trusting in God and not going into that temptation, but now he needs first to get rid of this before he can stay faithful as a creature. So let's look to the situation of the lady last night. She said, I gave all to my husband since my youth time when they met. And she was thinking that she has given how much from her? All of her. But when I asked her, she said the right answer, none of me. Because if you are a creature, how much can you give from yourself? Nothing. You know, as a creature, you follow a simple law that says, take to give. As non-a-creature, you don't go by this. You go by the opposite of it. You think you possess anything, you give first, and then you want to take. But let us see where the deep deception is. When one case learned me this, and it's also, I think, the most difficult and terrible case that I have in my practice. It's a mother who she came to me 6 years and 8 years after she lost her 11-year daughter that was abused by a person and killed in the abuse. Now imagine you have an 11-year-old daughter that someone kills. How would you relate to that situation? Would you consider that a great loss? Would you consider it a personal loss? And what would happen with you? What do you think? What was the physical condition of this young lady? Was she healthy? No. She was disabled to work. She had no ability anymore to go to work because the thought life that she had toward that what happened to her child. So, how many of us could cope with such a thing? Just right away. You see, we could only cope with it if we would have a heart that is free, like the heart of Job. The heart of Job, when his 10 children were killed, what was his reaction? Yes, he did not consider his children as his own. You know why? What did he say when he heard the news? What did he say? He said, naked I came. That means, how much did you bring? How much did you have from your own? You came naked, and so you took from what God gave you, and you can only give that. But you don't consider it as your own. So Job did not get sick from his thoughts, because even though he lost everything except his wife. So, if we would get into such a difficult situation, we would just have a very big issue with it, would we? And I believe that I would have a deep struggle until I would get over it. Because my heart would deceive me to think the child is mine and it is my personal item. But if we would think the child is not mine, how different would that be? Would it make a difference? Yes, because you hear in the news, abuse children and kill children, and do you get sick from it? No, because it's not yours. And this is the same way we need to think with those we think are ours. Now tell me, is it true that it is her child? Can a mother prove that the child is hers? I hear yes and no. Now who is right? Can a mother prove that the child is hers? Yes or no? Can she herself make a child? So is that child that comes out of her womb her own production? Yes or no? Is it? No, because it's also the half of the husband's inheritance and half of hers. So who from the parents can claim the child is his? I hear no answer. Neither one. Neither one. They all must say, we have given a part. I mean, it's something that we were implicated in, or we had a part in, but neither one can say, this is my possession. Why is it impossible for a human being to possess anything? Why? It is that a human can possess anything. Why you can never possess anything? Pardon? Because we do not create anything. In the moment you can create anything, then you can say that's mine. Because but you see, we think that we can create. And then the second question comes, what does the human being think he can create? So what does the human spirit think he creates? Because he would not think he is a possessor if he would not think he's a creator. So what is it that he thinks he creates? And this is the hardest question. This is what we need to understand. When you love, with which kind of love do you love? With your own love or with the love of another one? What kind of love do you use when you exercise love? Your own or another's love? So let's go through the list. We have here a list of our basic needs. We have here the spirit. The oxygen you breathe, can you produce it? No. The water you drink, can you produce it? The food you eat, can you produce it? The warmth, can you change it? The sleep, can you produce it? The sunshine, can you produce it? Can you produce the love you need to love the murder of your daughter? Now at that question you say no. But can you produce the love with which you love your husband or your wife or your child? So every one of us thinketh that we can produce love. It's a subconscious thing. You would never get upset if someone would reject you if you would not think that you are the creator of your own love. So if you think that you can produce love or create love, what do you think who you are? Who do you think you are if love is your own production? Who you are? You must think you are God. Because how much do you need for God if you can produce your own power? How much? None. Why does the world today think she does not need God? Why?
They think they are God.
Because they think they live from themselves. They think their spirit is independent of a source of taking love from. They are totally blind to themselves on their own action, who they are. So I want to give a few proofs that the human being, everyone, since Adam, because this was the promise of the serpent to Eve. What did she promise to her? You will be like God. And since then, we all are born with this attitude, with this thing about ourselves. And I want to give a few proofs to the idea I am God. The first proof is, of course, our own behavior. What is the highest achievement the human heart wants to reach? In what do you see your biggest achievement? Or in what does humans see their biggest achievement? Any idea? Pardon? Well, wealth is not it. Pardon? It's power. Dominion. Control. Ruling over others. The money that you have will not satisfy you if you cannot control or exercise power. So, the human being, when he has all money, he wants to become...
Like God.
Pardon?
Like God.
Yeah, no, he wants to rule. I have learned a lot from kids. Children are very good things to learn from. Did you ever see a child that does not want to rule? Have you ever met a child like that? I didn't see one, and I don't think there exists one, except the child Jesus Christ when he was on earth, that from childhood they want to dominate over whom? Their mother, their father, their siblings. It's amazing how much you can see in children how they want to dominate. But have you ever seen a child that likes to be dominated and ruled? So there's a contradiction, isn't it? In the child itself. The child wants to rule, but at the other hand, if you try to rule it, it will go against you. The one is a need. The other one is a deception. That it wants to rule over others is the deception. That it wants not to be ruled is a need. The need for liberty. So, power, dominion, control. In which direction is the world heading? Liberty or control? Full control. But is control anything godlike? No. You see, the dominion and the power of God is not in this. And we will see that later on. So what's the next behavior that we can see that a human thinks he is God? Have you seen a human that is not a judge? Have you? You see what means judgment? I know you. I know what's in your heart. Judgmentality, do you have it or not? Anyone here? I tell you, it's one of the most difficult things to be not judgmental. You judge a person in the moment you see it. And you're not even maybe aware of it. You put people in a category in a moment. Why do you do that? You see, this is one of the most terrible things that is in humanity, that we judge. How many does the Bible say we should never judge? The Bible gives us a strong, how you call this? Warning, admonition, to never judge because we do not know, and we are not gods. You are not God, that's why you have no ability to judge anyone. So what's a next attitude that proves that we think we are gods? The next attitude is that in our motivation we give first. Because what's the difference between God and a creature? If we take here God, how many functions does God have? And how many functions a human has? How many needs does God have? I hope you. None. So does God need to take something? No. The only action he has, what is it? Give. Because he lives out of himself. He just gives. Now, the human being needs to take first before he can give. Now, if he gives first before he takes, what does he need? What does he must think he is? Because he thinks he is closed up here, he gives from himself. But then he sees that he does not have anything to give, so then he wants to receive. God does not receive, he does not need anything for himself. So he just gives, and the human being, because it gives first, it thinks subconsciously, I am God. If I asked a human being if he thinks that he's spiritually dependent on someone, what would he say? You see, I have some people who know me and who sometimes don't take me very serious. They say, when you go to him as a doctor, he will tell you you have a problem with your mom. So, can they understand me or not? Why do most people have a problem with their mom? I recently had a case of a 15-year-old girl. It was in June this year, or in July. A 15-year-old girl got a sudden hearing loss on her left ear. And she got this hearing loss twice already. And it came last November, but it went away after a while. Usually after 1 week, the hearing loss comes back. I mean, it's recuperated. Then she had it a year before, in the same time in November, but it went away. Then she was 14, now she was 15. And a year before, 2 years before, when she was 13, she had a paralysis of the peroneus nerve on her right leg. So she couldn't keep her foot good because that nerve was paralyzed. And the paralysis was for 6 weeks until it got back. No one knew why. You see, no one knows why you have a hearing loss, a sudden hearing loss. So she almost lost the half of her ability to hear. Now, if you see the human being in his structure, you know it's the same side. It's the left side, the left side and the right leg. So that's the same brain side. And it comes in November. It's also sometimes very important to see the timing when it comes. And now it came in June, after half a year, and didn't disappear anymore. Now what to do for the cause? What to do? How to help? And since this girl is a child that comes to take violin lesson to my wife, and they know me as an ENT, and since we live about 40 miles away from where my practice is, not everyone can come to me, yes, but now since no one could help her with this hearing loss, she remembered, and my wife said, well, go to my husband, he might see what we can do about it. And now I knew that there is a cause to it. And I knew I have to go to the principle how this hearing loss happens. And the hearing loss happens because the child has a spiritual dependency from someone to take that it might live. But is that conscious to the child? No. I did a test. She was 15. And I asked her, do you think you're dependent on your mom? What was her answer?
No.
Of course not. I am 15. No dependency. Error or truth?
Error.
Deep error. You know why? Her hearing loss proved the dependency. She took from a source that was not a good source. And because she took from that source, she made her body sick. So the worst thing in the human spirit is that he thinketh. He is independent. There is only one that is independent and has no needs, and that is God, because he has no needs. Everyone who has a spiritual need is dependent from a source to satisfy that spiritual need. But you don't see it because of the way you think you are. We think we are independent. Independent. Is that the right spelling? Here? Like that? N and T, yeah. No? ENT was it? Yes, not ANT, yes? Like I read it before. So, independence means I live out of myself. We are not aware in the blindness, I say so, of our evil eye, that we are not independent. And this child proves, and I could prove in children, that a child is totally dependent to take from a source. And if the source is good, the child's development is right. But now, I came to speak with the source where the spirit of the child takes. What do you think? Where does the spirit of the child take? First is mom. And then with the time, it adds others too. So from what I knew so far, I knew that there must be a deep problem in her mom's heart that is coming out in the child's hearing loss. Some people, when they hear that, they cannot understand it, can they? It takes us somehow off-road. But by law, it is so. That is unconscious, doesn't matter. It is so. The child needs his mom to take love from her. And the mom, does it know that? No. So this lady was my age, maybe a little bit, yeah. She had also some health issues. And I said, would you come to counsel that we see what is there on your heart that needs to be solved? On the disease, you can see that it's going on for a time. Yes? Comes and goes and comes and goes, like diseases come and go. And so she came, and I took her history, and I took her life, and she had, from her own childhood, a difficult situation from her own home with her own parents. And she told me and said, but I thought I have solved these problems. Now you see, I learned something from the nervous system. I learned that there is a condition how to solve a problem. If people come to me and say, my parents have hurt me in my childhood, but I have forgiven them, I know that that's not according to the need of the nervous system. Because you see, people come and say, my mother did me loss, but I forgave her. Is the loss gone, or is it still in your memory as a loss? And then they excuse their parents and say, yes, mom couldn't do it better. Yeah, they had also their same issues. But you remain the same victim of your mom's mistakes or your dad's misbehavior or whatever it was. Because you think they did you loss. And as long as you have that in your memory, it will destroy your body. Because that is something that you cannot handle. The body cannot handle personal loss. It will make him, yes, sick. So when we solve problems, then the loss must become unpersonal. Not anymore my loss. Then you will get out of the disease. But as long as you believe the loss is yours, even if you excuse the person, yeah, he hit me, but he didn't hit me on intention, but I still suffer because of him now for 10 years. You are in a deception. It's only then solved when this personal thing is out, when you have a no for personal loss, when you don't have any losses that others have done unto you. But we don't know this. We don't know it even in religion. When we do our forgiveness seminars, we don't know how and what forgiveness needs to accomplish. We remain victims of what others have done unto us, and we are not agreeing, we cannot agree with the loss, so we go against it, and we are in the same dysfunctional physical situation. Even though on mental level we say, I have solved the issue. It's gone. No, it's not gone. Her physical diseases and that of her child proves that in her heart there are still things that are heavy. And she came for counsel, and I I gave her the whole lecture, and she is a Christian, and I showed her step by step every situation and what is forgiveness, what does you need to think towards your parents so that it should not affect you and those who come out of you. And you know, I will do this maybe on Saturday night. We'll come to that subject to speak more about it. But the good news was that whatever the mother did, after 3 months, in the midst of October, the hearing loss came back. I mean, she became normal again. This is, from a medical standpoint, not being able to explain. Every ENT would say, oh, if it doesn't go away after 6 weeks, yes, and so there's not much hope. But it came back after 3 or more months, I don't know, June till October, mid of October, we got the message. The hearing loss is solved. I didn't call her to ask her what she has done. I'm not that person to control, but I know something must have happened in the heart of the mother. And something must have happened because the child must have taken something that tastes better, that takes away the burden from the heart. So the main idea that we think we are independent, independence is the wrongest thing that we think we have on spiritual level. We are free agents, but let us not come into confusion between freedom, liberty, and independence, because they are two different kind of things. Free we are, but not independent. But even here, our evil nature confuses us because we say, oh, that's a contradiction. What do you think? Is there a contradiction between liberty and independence? On the first sight, you would say, oh yes, that's a contradiction. But it's not. Let us look. Were Adam and Eve dependent on God when they were created? Yes? A lot of trees there to eat from. But were they free to eat of anyone? Did someone stop them? They were forbidden to eat from one tree. But were they free to eat from that tree? Yes. No one was there stopping them. That tree didn't take away any freedom from them. But because they are dependent on how to come to wisdom, when they took from the wrong thing, they got into a miserable situation. If you are independent, you can do whatever you want. You have no accountability. But if you are dependent on a Creator that puts to you everything to your disposition, you need to give an account. Now let me put you this simple question. How many of you think that they have to give an account for what they have done today? I mean, are you consciously aware when you wake up in your morning to do today things that you, when you face them again, to say, okay, I want to face my own deeds again. And I don't want to face some of them again. Now I do the deeds that I don't want to face again, but I'm conscious more and more that I have a Creator who has given me my life, He has given me gifts, He has given me abilities that I should use for whom? For the benefit of others, in His interest. And because I am dependent, He can ask me an account for. If I would not be dependent, God would have no right to judge me. But we are dependent human beings. Our spirit is dependent. We are not dependent on food only and on this. We are dependent on love, on all those spiritual needs that we have. So our behavior looks like we are independent. And now I have a few other. The second is religion. Religion, most religions, or the religions of this world, they all proclaim that we are gods. Look into all those heathen, we can call them religions, or Eastern, wherever you go. You are either a part of God in pantheism, or you are God in Buddhism, yes, where you just go into nothingness. That's all the idea of God. The idea that you live everlasting is an idea of who am I? I can never die. I reincarnate every time I die. Yes, that's because you are immortal. That's just a God. The Bible says immortality belongs only unto God. So religion proves, because religion comes from our own hearts, proves because we made our own gods. Does the Bible say so? So heathen religions, they all say we are gods. Then we have here, it's not a religion that it looks like a religion, the agnostics or the atheists. I don't know if that's the right spelling, that's a German spelling. The atheists and the agnostics, they all think they live out of whom? Of themselves. Why would I need a God if I have love out of me? But I am thankful to God that these are my beloved patients. You know why? Because when they come to me and I show them their disease comes from a dependency of love from a human, they sit like that. And I just have one right now that I counsel. And when I came to the point of God, he says, well, God, I'm not comfortable with the idea that I need God. But he had a bad experience in his life because of that. He's about 40-something. But I said, look, if you can get away from your independency, then yes. If you can produce your own power for life, then there is no God. Then you have it. But you see, disease and death proves that we are not God. But they believe it. But I like them because when they understand it, they have the greatest chance to change, because they say, this makes sense. I am a dependent person. You know how difficult is that for me to say? Because my selfish heart would like to say, I am independent. The last one might not be the last one, but is science. Science. What does science say? Who we are? The evolution theory, what does it say? Where do we come from? We are coming from ourselves. We have made ourselves. Does any scientist, they might teach you and say, look, my dear patient, you are a dependent being on a spiritual level. No, science has excluded that the human has a spirit. And so it's all biology. And you are the highest possible being on this world. To whom are you accountable? On whom are you dependent? Maybe we are dependent on each other, but we are not dependent on a higher being where we need to take our love. That's why it's amazing in science you don't find much written about love. Because then, you see, if in medicine they would say human being needs love to exist, to be healthy, what would be the next questions? From where shall they take it? Then you will have God there where you have to take it, because where do you lead people when you need water and oxygen? Where do you lead them? To the fresh air, to the well, to the tree, or whatever you do, you know where to lead them. And if you need God, where would you lead people? If you need love, where would you need them to lead? To God. But you see, this is not a need, even though it is a need, because you produce it yourself. So then you can tear it down. You live by your own power. And it's not conscious to us, and it's not even conscious to Christians and to Christian doctors, that if we go with science, we might never find out what is the power for life. So there might be more proofs, but I want to stop here because we want to go further. I want to make clear to us that we must be aware when we think what is in us the deception. I once had a meeting not long ago, and the person that I stayed at their home, he said, I don't agree with your teachings. He said, if it is like you say, then it is not righteous that a person that killed 1 million of people, or 20 million, he's told me some story, I don't know out of which war, should that person that killed so many people ever have a chance to be saved in the kingdom of God? And he was, his righteousness, his sense of righteousness was there. And I put him that question. I didn't argue with him, thank God. I said, now, from which point do you judge? From a creation point or creature point, or from a judge point? In that moment he laughed and he said, I got the point. And we didn't need to discuss it. We are not aware when we do things out of which nature. We do it. But we must become aware. At least when our body taxes us, we must become aware, who am I? Out of what do I do it? Because if I am not God, I would not need, there is no need to judge my wife, to judge any one of me. Do I? I can accept them, I can love them as as myself. The Bible says there, the Hebrew word says, as thyself is not like you, because it's like an equal with you. An equal with you, can you judge? Who's in the same dependent position like you are? So, we must get it. When we do something, we must prove ourselves. Do I do it out of this or out of this? Yeah? It's most important for us to check ourselves. Because you see, the actions are in both the same. It's giving and taking. Taking and giving. There's not more. The only thing that is changed is the order of it. One is the right order, and the one is the wrong order. So, how could I understand that this is wrong? You see, when people speak about love or about relationship, they speak about a give and take, do they? Have you ever heard a take and give? Have you ever heard that, a take and give? I tell you not, I didn't hear it. It's even hard for me to say take and give. We all say it's a give and take. That's exactly the expression of our own hearts. It's a give and take. That's the expression of the, yes, the Bible says the carnal mind. So, I looked into nature, and in nature I could find answers to the law that governs also the spirit. And I like the laws in nature. They are so simple and they are so beautiful to see. And there is a general law that governs our earth. I call it the law of life. Have you ever wondered why I have this title and what is the law of life? We will speak now about, in the next 2 evenings, about the law of life. The law of life is a very simple thing. And at the basis of the law of life are just 2 actions. In anything that exists on this earth, there are only 2 actions that must be taken. So, let's see what are these actions. When we put a seed into the ground, what must this seed do first? Take or give? No. You see how we can interpret the things. When the seed comes into the earth, why does it need to come into the earth? To give the earth something or to take something from the earth? Yeah, I hope that we all can see that a seed has no power in itself to make a tree. But every information about the apple tree is in the apple seed. Everything is in the seed. But how much power? None. So it must take the power, and it is, some of it is given to the seed, but it must take its needs from the earth. If not, it will die if you don't put it in a place where it just is dry and might be preserved. But the question is, why does the seed take? What's the purpose when it takes and grows? So the purpose is to give. Is that correct? I was this year in October. I love nuts, and I hardly, because I'm not at home in certain season time, I cannot go pick nuts, because we have wild nut trees. I mean, they're not wild trees, but they do not belong. No one picks the nuts up, and I like to go to pick nuts. And I saw that I missed them, but I went one morning and I was so happy that the Lord preserved for me a lot of nuts on the ground. And I picked them, and I usually, when I'm in nature, I think about what can I learn. And I learned that morning something very important. I learned the tree of nut, because I found some nuts that they were opened up. They had a hole. And the idea that came into my mind was, is the tree of nut dependent on who eats his nuts? Is he saying, oh, I prepared these nuts only for you? No. He just gives them freely. If it's a mice, mouse, or a sparrow, or even a bird that takes the nut and let it fall down. I have seen this in the park once. The birds, she picks the nuts, she brings them in a nice place, and I saw where they are, and then she takes one, goes up, lets him fall down, the nut breaks off, and it eats it. And then it takes the next one. It was fantastic to see how intelligent that bird was eating the nuts. So the tree of nuts was made to give the nuts, because someone else needs to take those nuts. Yes? And he who takes those nuts, he also does not preserve them to himself, he gives them further, and it is changed. And if we take here the man, some of the products that remain leftovers in our digestive organs come to the bacteria we have there. And they live from what we give them from the nuts or the apples or whatever it is. And they, what do? They take it, and do they keep it for themselves? No, they change it and give something that as well as our body can use then to take, or they give it and the earth takes it just to give it into the next circle. So the whole law of life is a dependency that one takes to give. Life is just here. In the process that you take to give, that's when you live. So how much selfishness is out in nature there? Non-existent. Non-existent. The life could not exist if one would take and give to himself. It's not possible. But we interpret nature from our selfish viewpoint very different. There is only one thing in nature that does not follow this law. We know who it is? It's just the spirit of man. The body of man follows this. Because your stomach, how much food does it retain? None. Your liver, how much does it retain? The heart, how much blood does it retain? You understand? Everyone is just a take to give channel. No one produces anything for himself. Everyone works for the other. It's exactly the character of the Creator. Yes, He does not need to take, but He made everything for the purpose to give. That's why you don't find a healthy stomach who is not empty after a few hours. Yes? There is, on the physical level, we are all in the law. Just our spirit. What is the spirit? How is the spirit thinking? He says he gives to take. So what is his goal in life? Giving or taking? Taking. There is no such thing in the whole nature that exists that we can observe, that any purpose is in taking. Every purpose that we find in nature is just in giving. The taking is just a dependence. The nut tree is dependent on the earth to take. But if he would just be there to take, would he live? No. He would die. Because he was made to give. But of course, he needs first to take. Only the spirit of man is the one that is not according in the law. He thinks the purpose for life is to take. Isn't that terrible? You go into the marriage to give or to take. Why do you search for someone to marry if you're young? To give or to take? You see, the whole thoughts that the human spirit works with is with the wrong attitude, with the wrong direction. If nowhere in nature taking is the purpose, then he makes the taking a purpose, then it must come to death. It must come to death. That's why we die. That's why we destroy our own physical nervous system, because we have a purpose to take. It would not destroy us if our children, when they grow older, would go their own way and not the right way, so to say, in our eyes, if we would have not made them to take from them. if we would have not a purpose to take from someone, we would not need him, would we? We would be independent on the side of giving. So we will see this tomorrow night. I hope that you can grasp it is simple, but it's not so easy to discern. What is in your heart? Why do you act what you act? Are you in the law of life? You take to give? Or are you in the destruction life, in a destruction mood that is you give to take? There are many examples I could share about this terrible deception. But I will continue tomorrow night, where we go and see why is this the law of life, so that we may see the deep need that we have for a change of motivation, for a change of heart, so that we understand, wow, I am on the wrong pace. I'm going into the wrong direction. I have to change the direction. Tomorrow night we'll speak about this. We will go a little bit deeper and see things in our relationships that will amaze us and will bring us into opening our eyes to see how self-deceived we are and how we inflict the sufferings of our body on ourselves unconsciously. And we have no guilt for that. The guilt comes when we have a choice to change and remain in the same heart. When the Lord calls us, my son, give me thy heart, why does he want it? That it should be a new heart. It should be a heart where you live out of it with a power that does not come from you. So I don't know, when do we have question and answer session? Maybe tomorrow night? Or is... Pardon? Or Saturday night, tomorrow night, Saturday night. So if you have questions, you can hand me down, and then I can do a few questions. If there are some, I hope I answer all questions. I mean, they are who are needed for us to understand ourselves. And I hope, and I believe that we might be able to grasp the truth of life and be able to fulfill this law and become again not the enemies of our nervous system, but the friends of our nervous system, that we don't put in something that is poisonous and destructive to the body. Thank you.